It was the morning I found concrete barriers blocking my driveway. Again. Third time that week. So I did what any rational person would do. I called my army buddy and said 5 words that would destroy our HOA president. I need something permanently immovable. It was December in Colorado, 6 in the morning, and I stood there in my bathrobe, phone pressed to my ear, steam rising from my abandoned coffee mug. 3 concrete blocks, like prison walls, across my driveway. Fresh concrete mixed with the smell of diesel exhaust, making my blood boil. Delilah Thornberry thought she could harass me, a helpless divorced veteran, someone she'd expect to fold under pressure. What she didn't realize is that she'd just declared war on someone who had spent 20 years moving tanks and artillery for Uncle Sam. Fast forward 4 months. Delilah was screaming at news cameras about my concrete fortresses while packing moving trucks, leaving in disgrace. All because she never learned the first rule of warfare: never corner someone with superior firepower and unlimited patience. What would you do if your neighbor weaponized bureaucracy against you? Drop your HOA horror story below. My name's Marcus Rivera, and 6 months before the concrete war broke out, I thought I finally found peace. At 52 years old, freshly divorced, my ex had cleaned out half my savings. But after 20 years moving tanks for the military, I had scraped together enough for a down payment on a corner lot in Willowbrook Estates, just outside suburban Denver. I want a place of my own, a little bit of independence. My IT consulting business was my shot at making something for myself. What sealed the deal on the house? That beautiful circular driveway. After 2 decades of following orders, this house represented freedom. No more following rules. I was going to set my own. Clients could park without blocking the neighbors, and I could finally work from home in peace. I had done my homework, checked the deed restrictions, HOA covenants, and municipal codes. Nothing, and I mean nothing, prohibited home-based consulting. And then I met her. Delilah Thornberry, 48 years old, living in the McMansion at the end of the boulevard, the one with the fountain that broke 3 water restrictions, was the neighborhood HOA president. It should have been a red flag, but I didn't see it coming. Real estate agent by day, petty tyrant by night. Our first encounter happened on a Tuesday morning in October. I was loading network equipment into my F-150 when she just appeared. No knock, no introduction, clutching her clipboard like it was some kind of weapon. "You need to move that commercial truck immediately," she announced, her voice sharp. Not even bothering with a hello, I glanced at my 3-year-old Ford, identical to half the vehicles in the neighborhood. "Ma'am, this is my personal vehicle, which you're calling commercial." Her gold pen clicked like a weapon. "I've been documenting the traffic to your residence. Multiple vehicles per week. This disrupts our community standards." The smell of her perfume, something like roses soaked in hairspray, made my eyes water. But it was her tone that really set me off. The way she looked at me, like I was the hired help. "I'll review the covenants," I said, keeping my army poker face locked. "Oh, you do that," she said, and turned on her heel. "But just so you know, Marcus, we're in a tight ship here. Some people just aren't Willowbrook material." 3 days later, I got a violation notice demanding $150 for unauthorized commercial vehicle storage, threatening a $500 daily fine if I didn't cease all business activities within 7 days. It was printed on official HOA letterhead, complete with legal threats that sounded more like extortion than enforcement. I spent the weekend drowning in legal documents, deed restrictions, subdivision covenants, county ordinances, searching for something that prohibited home offices or client visits. Nothing. But buried deep in the HOA handbook, on page 47, I found her weapon, a deliberately vague commercial vehicle clause, so broadly written it could ban pizza delivery. I called for an appeal, but of course, the earliest hearing was 6 weeks out. Pay up or wait. Classic move. Delilah had made one crucial mistake. She tried to intimidate someone who'd spent 20 years solving real-life problems under fire. Someone who understood that bullies only respect superior firepower. So I paid her blood money, filed the appeal, and made two strategic decisions. First, I would document everything she did from now on. Second, I would study this woman until I knew her weaknesses better than she did. I set up security cameras, time-stamped everything, and studied her movements. Within 2 weeks, the cameras caught something that made my blood boil. Delilah Thornberry was measuring my driveway with surveyor's tape at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I watched it on my laptop the next morning, my coffee growing cold as I watched the infrared footage. Her white Mercedes parked 3 houses down like a getaway car. She was trespassing, gathering ammunition for whatever legal assault she was planning next. But here's where she made her first mistake. She had no idea I was documenting everything. The confrontation came the next morning. I was loading network equipment into my truck when she approached, wearing that practice smile of hers. "Marcus, we need to discuss your ongoing driveway situation," she said. "Funny you should mention driveways," I replied, keeping my voice conversational while my pulse hammered in my chest. "I was just reviewing some fascinating security footage from last night." Her face went pale for exactly 3 seconds. "I was conducting a routine community assessment," she said smoothly. "The board has received numerous complaints about your commercial activities disrupting residential tranquility." "Complaints from who, specifically?" I asked, my voice calm. "That's confidential board business," she said, her smile now rigid. "Funny," I said. "I've got some fascinating footage that suggests you were conducting something a little more than a routine assessment. Care to explain?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the footage. There she was at midnight, crouched next to my driveway, measuring tape in hand. The color drained from her face. "Midnight property surveying," I said. "Is that standard procedure for the HOA?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she tried to deflect, launching into the same old rhetoric about commercial vehicles. But this time I was ready. I'd spent 3 sleepless nights digging into Colorado HOA laws, and what I found would have made my Army intelligence officers proud. According to Colorado law, HOA boards can only enforce covenants that are explicitly written and properly adopted. Vague interpretations meant nothing. "Fascinating," I said, savoring the moment. Because, according to Colorado revised statute, Section 38-33-209, HOA enforcement requires specific language. No vague interpretations allowed. Her smile faded into something much sharper. "We'll see about that interpretation," she said, and, just like that, she called an emergency board meeting. Delilah's emergency board meeting turned into a bureaucratic theater. The board members sat at a folding table like judges at a medieval tribunal, while Delilah presided like a queen. She launched into a PowerPoint presentation complete with aerial photos of my house that made it look like an industrial complex. She painted me as the villain. Too many cars, too much traffic, yet ignored the actual rules, the actual facts. When it was my turn to speak, I distributed copies of the HOA covenants and legal documents, proving that what she was doing was nothing short of harassment. I presented evidence from my security cameras, showing that her accusations were baseless. But the real kicker came when Frank Kowalski, a quiet neighbor with a background in law, stood up. He'd been quietly reviewing the statutes I'd cited. He confirmed everything I had said. Delilah Thornberry had been serving illegally for 18 months, delinquent on HOA fees, and every decision she'd made was legally void. The room erupted in disbelief. The walls Delilah had built came crashing down. The entire neighborhood saw her for what she truly was, a tyrant hiding behind her self-appointed authority. And that was when the real war began.